Ah, yes, the beautiful month of July. The sun is hot, the days are hot, and the women are hot. Some might take a dip in the shallow end and hide that boner of shame, but not you. You're a man. You go big, and you aim to please all the coastal babage, and there's only one way to get the job done.
Start your engine!
That's right, July is the North American anniversary of Wave Race, a high-speed racing video game developed by Nintendo EAD that takes place on waves. Take control of a personal watercraft, perhaps one of Kawasaki's jet skis, and cut through stormy seas and Kool-Aid to secure a golden cup and bragging rights. But how did it start? Believe it or not, the series actually got its start on the Game Boy in July of 1992 and was only released in North America. Japan saw no release, and Europe did not get the game until June of 1997. Were they missing out? Well, the game is a flickering masterpiece of old technology that at the time actually got solid reviews, with critics praising the feel of skidding around corners. It offered two modes of play, slalom and race, giving players 16 obstacle-riddled courses to master. Today, the game holds a 74% score on game rankings, and it is a nostalgic gem for many who grew up with it, but it is definitely the least remembered of the series. Nintendo EAD began working on ways to jump from 2D games from the 16-bit era into the big world of 3D, with Shinya Takahashi leading the project of Wave Race, training Nintendo staff on the silicone graphics technology of the then still-in-progress Nintendo 64. A tech demo was created that demonstrated how ocean waves could be programmed, which caught the eye of the esteemed Shigeru Miyamoto, and the company immediately began trying to create something more like a game out of the technology. The original concept was a boat racing game in which the boats would transform in style to fit the situation, but the idea was scrapped due to fears that it would not stand out against other games. It was at this point that Tim Stamper of Rareware, believe it or not, suggested jet skis, and by September and November of 1996, Wave Race 64 came splashing onto shelves and helped propel sales in Japan and North America of the Nintendo 64. Wave Race 64 is iconic as one of the pioneer titles many 90s kids had alongside Super Mario 64, enveloping players with soothing music that is sure to stir up nostalgic feelings today. The game offered a circuit with 4 difficulties and a grand total of 8 tracks to race on, ranging from calm lakes to High Orange to stormy marinas. Racers had to pass yellow buoys on the left and red buoys on the right, and after so many successful passes, an unforgettable cornball announcer would alert you that you have reached your watercraft's. Too many failed passes would result in disqualification of the race. The game also offered multiplayer, time attack, stunt mode, and free roam to practice various stunts and controls. A hidden secret players could unlock was the ability to ride on the back of a dolphin. Overall, Wave Race 64 saw huge success and received mostly favorable reviews from critics, and it has been redistributed on both the Wii and Wii U Virtual Consoles since then. Personally, I still find this game immensely enjoyable, and I could easily pick it up and play it any day of the week. The soundtrack puts a lump in my throat and makes me happy at the same time, thanks to so many great memories with it as a kid. In September and November of 2001, the series came rushing back onto the Nintendo GameCube in Japan and North America, respectively, in the form of Wave Race Blue Storm, this time developed by Nintendo Software Technology, or NST, headquartered in Redmond, Washington, USA. The selling point of this game was the weather system, which created dynamic conditions on each of the 7 courses and altered the height of waves in a visually appealing way. Many critics agreed that the weather and water were beautifully done, which makes sense considering that the GameCube went under the codename Dolphin for that very technological reason during development. Players got to choose from 8 characters this time around, 3 returning from Wave Race 64, 2 newcomers, and 3 from 1080 snowboarding on the N64, a game that was also developed by Nintendo EAD back then and later handed over to NST in Washington to create a sequel. Racers once again varied in stats such as top speed, acceleration, and handling, all of which could be slightly tweaked before selection. Each character also had a crew chief, which was just a personalized announcer for the character, whether it's the racer's friend, brother, coach, or boyfriend. Additionally, the main championship mode presented players with a new planning option according to the weather. Rather than going in linear fashion, like in Wave Race 64, you could now choose which course you wanted to go to next, with the exception of the final course, which is always locked and dependent on the difficulty selected. So, if you see that the weather for the day is stormy, you may want to select an easier track to give yourself a better chance of winning the race. These can be deceptive, however, as certain tracks change the weather every lap, even if they started out relatively sunny or just under mild rain. Aspen Lake, California, is one that changes the most, either starting stormy and ending clear, or my personal favorite, starting kind of rainy, but then getting eerily dark each lap, the last of which is greeted with a giant lightning bolt, setting a fantastic mood for the final lap. Some tracks also changed the lap routing entirely between the different difficulty levels. Finally, the buoy rules remained the same as the previous game, but at maximum power, players were granted a turbo boost that once utilized would drop their maximum speed back to stage 1, requiring another successful chain of buoy passes to build back up. Other modes once again included time attack, stunt mode, multiplayer, and free roam, the latter of which was expanded to allow free roam on any unlocked course instead of just that one training level like in Wave Race 64. Blue Storm also had an exhibition mode in addition to the standard tutorial, which was simply a one-course race on a practice level to get used to the championship. The music of Blue Storm took a significantly different approach compared to the peaceful sounds of Wave Race 64, opting for something more fitting to the style of fusion or drum and bass, with some melodic overtones. This meshed well with the idea of stormy seas, as it instilled a sense of chaotic urgency, and many of the techno-poppy sounds get lost in the mix of crashing waves and revving engines. This, in turn though, also makes the soundtrack less memorable than its predecessor. Overall, Blue Storm did not sell as well as Wave Race 64, despite being the third best-selling launch title for the GameCube. My personal opinion is that it's still an excellent game, but I also get a lot of joy and excitement over anything having to do with water and storms, so this was something like a perfect mix for me. But I'd have to agree that it is not as memorable as Wave Race 64, and the controls were much stricter, at times even being really irritating, adding a level of challenge to the game that was both good and bad. But what's more upsetting than that is that Wave Race has never returned since 2001. And for that matter, its cousin game from the same North American branch of Nintendo, 1080 Snowboarding, hasn't returned either since the 2003 sequel, 1080 Avalanche. That's almost 2 decades of absence. Granted, both of these franchises served more as casual games to supplement Nintendo's console libraries, and never really meant to compete for Game of the Year status, but that's what made them so awesome. I loved being able to load up a game I knew I could finish in a few hours, or just to race a circuit for the casual enjoyment of it. And the beautiful wave visuals of Wave Race were a huge delight, and it was great to see them improve between the N64 and GameCube. If Nintendo announced tomorrow a Wave Race Switch, I would happily crap my pants. Ocean waves and stormy weather using the Switch's technological power, are you kidding me? I would argue that this is almost required after 2 decades of neglect. That said, I am not sure what the deal with NST over in Redmond, Washington is. They are not defunct. Nintendo EAD, responsible for the 2 64 games, Wave Race and 1080, has undergone several changes over the years and a recent merger following the death of former Nintendo president Satoru Iwata, but I don't see how any of this limits the ability to make sequels to both Wave Race and 1080. Perhaps they just see them as minimal profit? What do you guys think? Do you want to see a new Wave Race or 1080, or are they forever just 90s relics at this point? Feel free to discuss it in the comments. I'm gonna go ride a dolphin. Thanks for watching.